Good afternoon and good morning to everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar today. I know people are continuing to log in, but in order for us to get through it and finish by 2 p.m. for the lunchtime hour for many of us, we're going to go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned to some who are already on the line, we have muted all lines for now until the question and answer session. So if you're able to hear yourself, or if you're on the recording, if you would please go ahead and mute your own line on your own phone just to make sure we do not have background noise while our presenter is speaking today. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Marissa Tonelli, and I'm the Senior Capacity Building Manager here at Health HIV, and I lead our ASO and CBO Leadership Initiative, which is what is hosting this program today. So today we're going to hear from Tyler Termier, who is our Executive Director at the Cascaded Project, and he will be talking about mentoring, specifically in the context of building leaders of the future. So before we get started, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on Health HIV. We have 4 core capabilities: capacity building, health services research and evaluation, advocacy, and education and training. And we have a variety of different capacity building, or CBA, programs that we offer, including ASO and CBO capacity building, health department capacity building, and our HIV prevention technical assistance program, which is called 3D, which is one of the programs that this initiative is housed under. So just to give you a little bit of background on 3D, why do we call it 3D? This is because it's a comprehensive and multidimensional technical assistance program that aims at enhancing the ability of TA recipients to conduct enhanced data collection and analysis that make better informed programmatic decisions and impact the delivery of quality HIV prevention services. So you can see the 3Ds in that. And our approach to this program is to facilitate community infrastructure development and systems coordination, expand care team integration through partnership development to include the non-clinical HIV prevention partners as well, demonstrate cost effectiveness and outcomes monitoring of programs to demonstrate strengths, efficiencies, and the impact on health outcomes of our programs, and also to promote workforce development, and that includes training the next generation of leaders in HIV prevention. So that is part of the reason why we decided to launch our ASO CBO Leadership Initiative. I can hear some background noise. I'm sorry. If you would all mute your lines if you can, that would be really great. I would appreciate that, just so that folks who can't join us can hear the recording clearly. Thank you. So our leadership initiative includes 4 different pieces right now, and we launched it last fall. Our first piece of the program includes a leadership training and certificate program, which is an online 6-module self-paced program, and some of you may have already completed that, which is great. We also have our Leadership Link and Learn monthly webinar series, which is a lunchtime webinar series. This is one of those that is included, and we have hosted 2 others already this year. We also have a mentor-mentee program for ASO leaders and an online portal that links ASO and CBO leaders to engage with one another, share information and best practices, and participate in training opportunities. So if you're interested in becoming a certified ASO leader, you can use this URL or go to the Health HIV website to enroll in the program. Again, as I mentioned, it is a 6-module program that we launched last November. And we have so far certified over 150 leaders. This is actually a little bit older of a map, but you can get an idea of where the leaders are across the country that have participated and received a certificate of completion in our ASO leadership program. And if you're interested in learning more, you can also download our program brochure using this URL. And all of the materials today, if you're not able to download it from WebEx right now, the slide deck, you can download it following the webinar on Health HIV's website, as well as the webinar recording, which will be available about 24 hours after this session, and a question and answer worksheet if that's necessary, if we have additional Q&A questions that are not part of the recording. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tyler Termier, again, the Executive Director of the Cascade AIDS Project, to start off this really great webinar on mentoring and building leaders of the future. So I will pass it to Tyler, and he can go ahead and get started and introduce himself, if you don't mind.
Great. Thank you so much, Marissa. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. So thank you to Marissa and Health HIV for inviting me today to speak on mentoring, specifically around building leaders of the future, a topic that has been incredibly important to me in my own professional development. Today, we will be going through the initial learning objectives that we set forth for this webinar. I hope to take a few moments to talk to you about my professional background and the value that mentorship has played in my journey to my role as Executive Director today. Talk for a moment about the Cascade AIDS Project and the value we have placed on elevating our leadership at all levels within the organization. And then dive into the bulk of our conversation about building future leaders. So tokenized involvement versus meaningful inclusiveness of new and emerging leaders, the impact of organizational policies and practices on young people, tapping into innovation and new strategies, and the leadership values and the importance of succession planning at all levels. The learning objectives as we make our way through today's webinar are to foster the meaningful inclusion of young leaders into our organizational cultures, to the governance practices that we have as organizations and in the quality management initiatives that we embark on as organizations, to communicate about the concerns and issues that are important to young people and how those policies and practices affect their lives, that we can harness the unique and often untapped abilities of young and emerging leaders in hopes of enhancing innovative approaches to both program and policy, and to promote a strong value of leadership development, education, and employment to ensure that youth or emerging leaders have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential. I thought that it would be a good place to start by talking a little bit about the personal impact that mentorship has had on my personal and professional career. The image in front of you is a young 21-year-old version of myself when I first started this path towards becoming an executive director and first stepped foot into the arena of wanting to be a leader within this field. Over the course of my professional career, I have been incredibly privileged to have had amazing mentorship, and that mentorship has opened the door to many exciting opportunities for me, and I largely credit that early mentorship experience as having laid the foundation in my own professional development. In March of 2004, I was diagnosed HIV positive, and as many are early on in a diagnosis, I was searching for direction and opportunities to get involved and give back to a community that was very supportive of me in learning my diagnosis. And I met a man named Kevin Sullivan, who was the executive director of a small program and policy organization providing hope and healing and empowerment opportunities for people living with HIV in the state of Ohio. And this man, who unfortunately is no longer with us, took a chance on a young, ambitious, HIV-positive young adult who was looking to get involved and instilled in me a true sense of investment not only for my own development, but for future leadership within the epidemic. As a mentor, he worked very diligently to connect me with program and policy development within his organization, and didn't offer me a job as his assistant, but offered me a job and an investment in my future by making me a manager of programs. Throughout that journey, he also encouraged my participation in state, local, and national conferences, and in getting involved in boards of directors both in Ohio and around the country. Beyond that, he took the time out of his incredibly busy schedule as an executive director to talk to me about the day-to-day operations of the organization, about the importance of community planning and getting involved at all levels, and quite often allowed for the opportunity for me to fall flat on my face as a lesson in learning the value of each decision that we make and the importance of trying new things, being innovative in your approaches. But he was always there to provide insight and guidance on ways to improve my future decision-making and to get involved at all levels of program and policy. So then the image there on the right would be me here today at the age of 32, and much has changed in my own journey over the last 11 plus years. I am now the executive director of the Cascaded Project, serve as an advisory board member for the National Center for Innovation in HIV Care on the AIDS United Public Policy Committee. I'm completing my PhD in public policy and administration, and as I mentioned, I've had the honor and privilege of doing quite a bit of work all before the age of 30, and now I'm leading an organization with nearly 7 staff celebrating 30 years of history here in the Portland area. A brief intro to the Cascaded Project and the work that we have been able to provide over the last 30 years. Our overall purpose is as serving as one of the oldest and largest community-based providers of HIV services, housing, education, and advocacy in Oregon and Southwest Washington. We have recently engaged in a process of examining our mission as an organization and have broadened our mission statement to include other health disparities as we look at how we remain relevant as an organization moving forward. With the development of our new strategic plan, we have 5 imperatives which are listed on the screen in front of you, but today I'll highlight the importance of elevating CAP's leadership. For us as an organization, that has taken on many different meanings. It is both the importance of elevating the leadership opportunities that we offer to our clients through opportunities to participate in client-led advocacy, both here in Oregon and on the national level. We have been investing in our clients and making the opportunity to send them to national conferences, as well as the National AIDS Watch program to participate in education and advocacy in Washington, D.C. But equally as important, it's examining the role of leadership for our board of directors, and most importantly, in the leadership opportunities that we offer our staff. In arriving here as the new executive director at CAP just about 10 months ago, we quickly understood the importance of creating a management training program for individuals who were interested in a management track at some point in their career at CAP, but also to ensure that they had the foundation of skills necessary to work at other ASOs around the country throughout their long and fruitful careers. And we've instilled a strengths-based approach to management and operations at our agency, by having an agency-wide approach to understanding the strengths that we have collectively as an organization and how we can collectively use those strengths to further our work, our mission, and our personal and professional relationships. We as an organization are working to ensure that we have highly engaged leadership at every level. So what has this meant in the movement as we know it? In the past, I think that youth involvement has generally meant that we offer opportunities for young people or new leaders to get involved through advisory boards, through focus groups, as peers in our education or navigation work. But we often are hiring individuals and placing them in isolating volunteer, internship, or entry-level positions that often have limited professional development opportunities. We, I think, have this very long list of common excuses when we think about taking the time to invest in emerging leaders. We think about the high turnover rates of young persons or the burnout rate that we experience in our field. We think about the additional costs, including training new staff and transportation needs for those who may not have access due to financial means of being just out of school. And we think about the differences in management style, the preferences by which we communicate, the types of schedules that these leaders may have due to still being in school or finishing internship requirements as they become the new workforce in our field. But I do feel like failure by institutions to plan adequately for our organizational capacity is one of our greatest downfalls. We need to make sure that we are accommodating both adults as leaders as well as new, young, emerging leaders in this epidemic. And I'd ask, as you look at that list in front of you, don't we encounter many of these same barriers when we have someone who is newly hired regardless of their age? There will always be the need for training, the additional costs associated with turnover regardless of age. So instead, I ask that we think about the benefits of meaningful inclusiveness. That could mean that we are able to engage a new group of people in improving the relevance and effectiveness of our programs and services, that we're building the capacity of our leadership capability by including young and new emerging leaders, and that we have this amazing opportunity to stimulate new, creative, and synergistic ideas and energy from all of those involved in ensuring that our mission is completed as an organization. But most of all, I think that we are establishing credibility of investing in youth-oriented ideas and youth-directed implementation and investing in the future workforce of our epidemic. Moving forward, organizations must make a concerted, meaningful effort to integrate young leaders into leadership roles, including our advocacy efforts, the governance that we have as an organization, and in our programming and evaluation efforts. Those who are proponents of youth-adult partnerships often see young people as individuals with the capacity to make positive and wide-ranging contributions when they receive the support and the opportunity to develop their skills. So when asking organizations about the impact of organizational policies and practices on young people, many have said that they help those young people involved form higher aspirations, gain confidence, attain resources, improve skills and knowledge, change attitudes, and develop more meaningful relationships with adults. But it also fosters resilience by giving new leaders the opportunity to contribute to the community that we serve and often the family environment that we have created within our field. But we additionally enhance our leaders' social competence, their ability to effectively problem solve, and give them a sense of purpose beyond the day-to-day tasks of their role. It helps new leaders be open to learning, to engaging in important and critical dialogues, to be creative, and to take initiative in our field. The mentorship opportunity also results in positive outcomes, and few things can more concretely demonstrate a belief in our young people's capabilities than when we, as adults or current leaders, share with them the power to make decisions. I know that that is a great investment of our time and our resources, but organizations that are mentoring young leaders have said that young people and new leaders are helping to clarify and bring focus to the organization's mission. We know that adults within the organization as a whole can become more connected and responsive to the young communities that we're serving by leading in program improvements and involving young and emerging leaders as the face of those programs. Organizations place a greater value on inclusion and representation and have seen programs benefit when multiple and diverse voices are incorporated and are participating in making decisions for the program and the organization as a whole. And overall, in speaking from the perspective of not only a person who has emerged as a young leader through this epidemic, but who is working with young people in my day-to-day work, I know that foundations and other funding agencies are truly seeing the value of committed and meaningful youth development and involvement in our organizations. So how do we move forward, and how do we tap into innovation and new strategies? You know, I think as we think about the new paradigm that is needed, one of those moves is from tokenism to one that truly engages young people as full partners in the design and implementation of our strategies and our programs. Participation of young leaders can help achieve better program outcomes for the young leader themselves, for the adults in the organization, or those that have been in leadership positions for a great length of time, and for the target audiences of young people and providers that we know that we need to serve as a whole. Organizations that have embraced youth leadership believe that it benefits the young person, makes the program more relevant and credible, and strengthens the program's ties to the larger community. Simultaneous to our conversations about sector transformation and remaining relevant as organizations, we must make the time to ensure that our organizations have succession plans to ensure our long-term sustainability. So leadership at all levels should be asking, if I couldn't show up for work tomorrow, do I have a backup? Do they know that they are my backup? And what if they aren't available? Do they have a backup in place? And do they have the knowledge and tools to perform the functions of my role? I would also challenge you then to take a second look at that question and ask yourself, if I'm going to already be investing in transferring the knowledge and skills of my role, how can I make the time for mentorship and room for young leadership development in that process? In looking for a framework to elevate the importance of mentorship, and the development of young leadership, organizations should assess the current level of youth participation in your organization. You should look for and determine the ways that youth can be involved meaningfully and integrally throughout your organization, and avoid tokenism at all costs. I think often we fall into the trap of recognizing the need to foster new leaders within the organization, and so we offer them positions within our youth-facing programs, or as the receptionist, or offer internship opportunities. But beyond that, how do we instill a practice of creating opportunities for young people that they are involved in all stages and all levels of the organization? Do we have the ability and capacity to ensure that new leaders have a role in decision-making, and that their involvement isn't just there as a token for saying that we do have young people involved in the process? We also need to ensure that we are fostering a commitment to youth-adult partnerships at all levels in the organization, ensuring that we support youth through mentoring and skills-building opportunities, and that the mentors themselves have the time and the energy to supervise the new leader. From my personal experience as a young person who was starting in this field, I truly believe that the path that I have been able to walk down was largely facilitated by the time investment that was offered by not only my first mentor and boss, but those who I've met along my journey in this field. But that means making sure that meeting times are flexible for youth, that we provide food and transportation if necessary, that we establish a clear set of goals and expectations for the responsibilities of new leaders who may not have had this type of experience, and that we are monitoring the new and emerging needs of leaders that have not been in this position previously. In order to do all of these things, we also must recognize that as an organization or as current leaders, that many of us as organizations will require an attitude shift. We need to be aware of the misconceptions and biases that youth and adults have about each other, and be open to making changes to program policy and communication as we develop this new atmosphere for fostering leadership among new and emerging leaders. We need to be open to changing the attitude and be open to building the skills in working with young people. We need to also be aware of the different styles of communication and the different levels of education. We have many young people today who bring a certain level of life experience and experience in the workforce, but don't have the same level of education due to rising cost of education. And so how do we value the skills and experiences of both youth and adults equally, and use training opportunities to diminish the stereotype and facilitate collaboration among all of those within our organization? As a young leader myself, I took quite a bit of time to get to know this field and to meet those who I consider great mentors along my own journey. And now at the age of 32, as I sit at the helm of an AIDS service organization that serves all of Oregon and Southwest Washington State, I bring with me the experience of having mentors that allowed me to be a part of their conversations in the transformation of the traditional ASO. I led our small AIDS service organization in Ohio through a merger with a larger organization, and came to that opportunity because as a young adult in this field, my mentor believed in my ability to take the helm of the organization when and if they needed to move on. And at the time of his passing, I was offered the opportunity to be elevated to the director of that organization and lead them through a merger with a much larger organization, communicating the importance of the voices of people with HIV throughout that process. And as a result of that merger, was a part of a complex team of individuals that transformed the organization to providing direct medical services, substance abuse counseling, and other supportive services in a fully holistic, comprehensive model of care. And now, as Cascaded Project celebrates its 30 years of service, I am hoping that as I lead my team of 70 individuals here in the Portland area, that our programs continue to make local impact with national significance as we have throughout the history of our organization, but that I am also serving as a mentor for those in my organization. You know, I think before I open it up to questions, I'll just end by saying that I truly believe that the organization that I currently work for took the time and the energy to invest in a young person who had worked their way through the many challenges of being young in a leadership role. They recognized that mentorship goes in both directions, and that hiring an executive director at the age of 32, that there would be directors and other staff that were older or had been working in the field for a much longer period of time, and saw the value that mentorship could bring both to the perspective that I bring as a new emerging leader within the epidemic, but also the value that I would have in my own development as an executive director from all of those who have been in the field for much longer and are looking to pass on their institutional knowledge and skill sets. So with that, I will open up the call for any questions that folks may have.
Great. So if you have any specific questions for Tyler, you can either type them into the Q&A or the chat box, or raise your hand. There should be an option on the WebEx to raise your hand for a question, and we can just read off the question or unmute your line and allow you to ask Tyler that question. So we'll just give everyone just a minute to see if there are any questions.
Looks like there's one question in my chat. It says, it seems that the lack of trust seems to be the root of the lack of succession planning and youth involvement. What are some helpful tips to gain the trust of organizational leaders or for organizational leaders to trust its staff? Yeah, I think that's a great question. It really takes having someone that you can build a relationship with within the organization and sometimes outside of the organization in order to build the rapport. I don't think that trust happens overnight, but as an emerging leader, continuing to take on more and more leadership opportunities, asking continuously for the opportunity to perhaps shadow a meeting or be involved in a conversation. If you can't attend that meeting because the leadership feels like it's not appropriate, asking for the opportunity as a young leader or as a current leader, offering the opportunity to talk to those who are interested about the way that the organization works or how that meeting will be facilitated. Here at CAP, we are offering the opportunity for our emerging leaders to sit down with our Director of Finance to understand the financial reports that we produce as an organization, how we build a budget, and how to read our financial statements and audit, so that they are prepared for the opportunity to step into more of a leadership role when that time comes. A great example for myself, when I arrived here at CAP, we had the natural turnover that sometimes happens when a new leader enters the organization. CAP, unfortunately, had a gap in having an executive director of about 2 years when I arrived. And so upon my arrival, I was working to build leadership opportunities for my staff, to rebuild management level positions. And unfortunately, because we did not have a strong succession plan at multiple levels, not only was there a gap in having an executive director, but we did not have staff that felt like they were internally prepared to step into management roles. And so with that knowledge, we have now documented the succession process for my own elevation to executive director here, and for ensuring that our staff who are in management positions are preparing their direct reports for the possibility of becoming managers in the future.
Great. So Tyler, I don't know if you see there's one other question in the queue from Bernadette, and the question is, are these support systems / mentorship geared only towards individuals who are challenged by HIV?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is, I think that there are a unique set of support systems that we have created here at CAP for our staff who are living with HIV, but we have really designed our systems along the lines of just understanding the importance of mentorship as a whole. I think that recognizing that any organization, regardless of its focus or its mission, has a responsibility to ensure that we are prepared for having the next line of leaders to take over the organization. If as a leader I am not preparing my staff to be the best that they can possibly be, to provide them the tools to be the most effective that they can be, then I'm not really doing my job as a leader. Ultimately, I think you should be mentoring your staff so that they are wanted by every other organization in town, but then it's also your job as the leader to make sure that you offer them the opportunities necessary to make them stay and continue the hard work.
Great, and I see one other comment from Aunsha Hall, and it says, from my experience in even engaging other Black gay men who do this work, oh, sorry, that question ends. Are you on the, if Venetia is on the line and you want to ask a question from Clayton Board of Health, I'm happy to unmute your line. It looks like you got cut off.
Hello.
I just unmuted your line, Ms. Hall, if you have a question for Tyler. Oh. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Okay.
Is this Anshay Hall from the Clayton Board of Health? Sorry.
Hey, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Hey, Tyler, this is Anshay, and I had another question. What I've also noticed is that I think in this, I love this conversation. I feel like it's so needed. What I've also noticed is that, and I'm not sure what it's like with amongst other populations, but I do know among a group of like Black gay men who do this work, and we actually did this whole posed a question via Facebook around this, but some individuals who've come up in this field, who worked in this field, from, from being young folks to now growing into their 30s and being, older adults, what have you. What I've noticed is that there's been this, in the mentorship, there's been, I guess, a quote unquote, I guess ageism plays itself out at its finest. And you touched on it for a moment where you made mention about individuals being invited, young people being invited to maybe planning meetings or what have you, but they're just there just to say, hey, we have young people at the table. What I've noticed is that once individuals begin to share their experience, what happens is they begin to, I guess there's this just put down, and so it feels like a form of disempowerment for them. And so I wanted to know if, just your experience with this, is have you managed ageism as you begin to, during your leadership development journey? How's that been for you? And what tips or what would you provide, what would you say to someone who's trying to navigate the ageism that they're beginning to experience?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it's wonderful to hear your voice. I think every day of my professional journey, I have experienced ageism. I think even from the time that the announcement was made that I had been hired as the newest executive director here at CAP, and as I began meeting the community, many folks have questioned my age and whether or not I've worked in the field long enough or have the expertise to be sitting in the position that I'm in. You know, I think I have always been from the mentality that you need to project the confidence that you know that you have and to stand behind the work that you have accomplished at whatever level that may be. And I think in my particular case, when age comes up as a question or a question of my ability, I stand behind that work, behind my ability to have survived the interview process. I obviously would not be sitting in the chair that I'm in if the group of governing board here at CAP didn't believe in the investment and the skills that I am able to bring to the organization. From a broader perspective, I do believe that we often fall into a very difficult trap of judging individuals based on what we see on paper, right? And so we have a group of young people who have been involved perhaps in community planning or in initiatives that are occurring to organize and mobilize young people around the country, but they don't have the title executive director. They don't have a manager or director title on their resume, and so they're often tossed to the side when we're considering young people as leaders. And so what I would challenge folks who are in leadership positions to do is to make sure that you're allowing the time and space for that. Make sure that you are investing in having young people involved in the committee structures that you have as an organization so that you can identify those who have the talent and the ability to add very meaningfully to the work that you're doing as an organization. And so that could be involving a young person in your quality management initiatives at the organization and ensuring that you have not only the voices of people living with HIV, but a reflection of the population you serve so that you ensure that the programs that you are providing are truly impacting the communities that need it the most, that you examine what your governance structure looks like, and is there a role beyond just an advisory board? Is there a seat on your board of directors for a young emerging leader? You know, I think a great example of an organization who really puts their money where their words is Advocates for Youth in Washington, D.C. They are a national organization that truly values young leadership and involvement. And very early on in my career, I was offered the opportunity to sit as a young representative on their board, but it wasn't a tokenized role. It wasn't the fact that I was offered a seat on the board because they wanted a young person there. I had the same ability and capacity to vote for the direction of the organization on the financial statements, on the budget, and on the salary of their executive director. And you know, I don't know that we often as organizations invest in such a meaningful way.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyler. I don't see any other questions at this time. I'm going to give just another 30 seconds for any additional questions for Tyler before we close out the Q&A. If anyone has another question. Great. So I don't see anything popping up. So we're going to just close the Q&A for now. And thank you so much, Tyler, for your great responses to all those questions. I did get another question from someone about the slide deck, which I will explain in just a second. If you go to Health HIV's website, we will be posting within the next 24 hours the slide deck the slide deck that was presented today, and the webinar recording will also be available, which will include the question and answer sessions. If you have any additional questions, you can feel free to email me, and I'll post my email up in just a second. And we can include that in the question and answer, and I'll have Tyler respond to that. Just wanted to let you know of another upcoming webinar, which is the next in our Leadership Link and Learn series, and it's coming up very soon. So next Tuesday, we will be hosting a webinar with the National Black Justice Coalition called Empowering and Promoting HIV Leaders in MSM of Color Communities. And it will discuss models for addressing social determinants of health. So we have a really great researcher from Boston, as well as Corey Yarbrough, who is the CEO of the Hispanic Black Gay Coalition, which is in Boston, Massachusetts, and he'll be talking about how to empower leaders in those communities. If you're interested in registering, we'll be sending out some more registration material today, but you can also use the tiny URL web address that's here to register for that webinar. And in addition, if you have any questions about our capacity building programs, for more information about our ASO/CBO Leadership Initiative, or if you have questions that were not answered by Tyler that you would like me to share with him and get answers for, you can email me, Marissa, at healthhiv.org, and my phone number is also there for you to use. So with that, we will close out our webinar a little bit early. Tyler, thank you again so much for your participation, and thank you all for attending. Great. So we will close out the webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.